Okay, let's see this. Sounds like Nintendo is being smart with the Switch 2. What is this, pray tell, IGN?
Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show discussing everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield, and this week I'm joined by Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Hello again.
And Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Howdy, my friend.
But we are not talking about either PlayStation or Xbox today, at least not exclusively. Today we're focusing on Nintendo. Alleged details about the Switch 2 have been shared by two different sources. They were first revealed by Spanish outlet Vandal, and they've been corroborated by third-party Switch accessory manufacturer Mobipad. So here's what...
I have not heard any of this. My prediction is that the Switch 2 will be underpowered compared to other developers or other consoles. I'm guessing that this device from Nintendo will be much more of like a 3DS than a reinvention. I think it's going to be more Switch than it is anything else, because they kind of struck gold with it. I don't think they need to like redesign it like crazy. So I think they're just going to keep it pretty much the same, but we'll see.
What they say. They say that the Switch 2 is going to feature new Joy-Cons, larger electromagnetic suction Joy-Cons. So instead of sliding in the rails in the previous model, electromagnetic suction. Mobipad claims it will feature minor changes to the dock, but will deliver 4K resolution, while the screen will be 8 inches and support 1080p resolution. Perhaps most importantly, it is said to be backwards compatible with Switch games.
Assuming that is the case, my understanding is it's rumored that it's going to have like basically DLSS, because it uses some NVIDIA chip in it, and so they'll be able to use DLSS upscaling to get it to go up and present like 4K signals and stuff. I'm sure it's better, but you don't buy Nintendo consoles for them to be cutting edge. Like, they never really look that amazing. They never are that stunning. You know, like, they're always just fine. They're always just fine. The games are where they excel. The Switch 2, it seems, is going to have stuff like, it's going to have probably a new Mario game, probably a new Smash Bros, a new Mario Kart, but like an actual new one, not just like the Wii U's Mario Kart ported over. So it seems like it's going to have an actual, like, pretty significant catalog right at launch. And for that, I think it actually could be fairly successful, I think. Just because a lot of people will be buying it instantly. Like, imagine if there's just a new Mario Kart and a new Mario game and a new Smash Bros right at launch, or even if it's like staggered by a month at a time, so you have time to finish each of them. I think that would be enough to launch this thing into the stratosphere for sales. They also said that they're working really hard to avoid hardware restrictions in inventory, so they really want to make sure that they have enough out there for people that they can gobble it up and buy it if they want it without having to deal with scalpers. So I mean, I think people will be excited, but I don't think it's going to be the same phenomenon as the Switch. Like, the Switch was so different and so crazy, and it also came at a time when every other major producer of handheld devices had pretty much given up on it. Like, we had the Vita, we had PSP, that's what I'm thinking of. Thank you, Alex, PSP. Yeah, like, we had those, but handheld devices were definitely not being pushed. And I think the Switch came along and showed people it could work, and people ate it up. I mean, I remember probably like 2018, 2019, when third-party publishers started putting games on the Switch. It was just continuing to blow up because you could play 360 and PS3 games pretty easily on the Switch and have a great time. I remember playing, I played a lot of Black Flag on the Switch. And now we have like the Steam Deck, RG Ally, the Lenovo Legion Go. We have those devices, so it's not as like needed. You don't really need to play it on the Switch. You can play it on a much more powerful platform. But I think it showed everybody that the handheld market was still important and people wanted it. Like, people were eating it up.
Absolutely. At this point, you know, Nintendo, they have a track record for getting weird. We kept talking about this in the meeting before this. They occasionally, you know, zag when you want them to zig, and it seems like this time around they're playing it pretty safe, which is not necessarily exciting. It's not, you know, it's not going to be anything wacky like the Wii or the Wii U, but maybe that's for the best. You know, the Switch has been a phenomenal device, and it's clearly, you know, attracted the attention of what is like the third best-selling gaming device ever, period. You know, it's massively popular. So I'm hoping Nintendo kind of plays it safe, which again, it's not particularly exciting to talk about, but it's it bodes well for the future of the system and the the ecosystem around it. As for what we can expect from it technically, I think definitely people should kind of keep their expectations in check because in addition to occasionally getting a little bit weird, Nintendo also has the reputation for not going too hard in the the technology department. Like I think a 4K output is good. I can't imagine we're going to see that when it's in handheld mode, but like that's this isn't going to be a high performance gaming device. This is going to be a Nintendo hybrid console handheld thing. That's great. That's good. That's good news. But I feel like looking at the sort of immediate competition from other recent handhelds like the Steam Deck, it might be easy to kind of let imaginations and expectations run away a little bit. Like I don't think this is going to be a super powerful device. I think it's going to be a good step up, but we keep calling it the Super Switch or the Switch Advance, something like that. And I feel like that is a good kind of level of expectation to put on it. And everything we keep hearing about it seems like it's kind of going in a predictable but fun direction for the best.
I think I just realized he has a sign that says free smells. That confused me. If I'm looking at this from a business perspective, there's a couple things that potentially are worrying. Like if I was an investor and I hear about all these plans, because for one, why did the Wii U really flop? I mean, the Wii U really flopped because people didn't fully realize, especially in the more casual markets, they didn't realize it was a totally new console. They looked at it and they're like, so it's a Wii, but like a new controller for the Wii. And Nintendo's like, no, it's a brand new console. It just also has a different type of controller. We just called it the Wii, but it confused people. And I think if they do something like a Switch Advance or a Switch whatever, Switch Pro, Switch 2, Switch 2 would be better, I think, than a Switch Advance or something, because it would be clear this is a separate thing. But even then, it's allegedly going to be backwards compatible with the Switch catalog, which will certainly be very good. It's a pro-consumer move. It protects those libraries and then also makes the console much more compelling at launch because you'll have a bunch of games to play on it if you choose to. But if I'm looking at it purely as like an investor or from a business perspective, I'd be worried that they might fall into the same trap as before. If they do like a half measure of both upgrading and making a new console, but also leaving it to still basically just be the Switch, but sort of reworked. Because if I think of it like, the parents are out shopping for Christmas presents and they're like, okay, what do we get our kid Timmy for Christmas? It's like, well, he already has a Switch. Does he need the Switch Advance? No, not really. It's $400. I think that little barrier could be a problem. Yeah, no half measures, Walter. Exactly. No half measures. So something like that could happen, and it could be very problematic for Nintendo in the long run. But that being said, the more hardcore fans or the people that are more in tune with like the breaking news, I think will understand that this is a bigger step up and this is something else. I'd be very interested in how they're going to handle the distinction between the old device and the new device. Because right now, like they're mentioning, it's up in the air. It's not super clear, and that's the whole thing. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. If it is just like, say, a Switch, like they've kind of shown in some art, if it's just a Switch, but like thinner bezels and the Joy-Cons are slightly different so that they can sell you all new Joy-Cons, I'm sure, then I think a lot of people will be like, okay, well, it's not that thrilling because the market's different than it was back in 2017 when the Switch launched. We now have the Steam Deck. We now have the ROG Ally. We have the Legion Go. Like people have certain expectations. And I think if the Switch, whatever this is going to be, is not differentiating itself in a significant way, there could be problems. I think parents will buy it if it's less than 300. Parents will see the 2 and just buy it. Yeah, well, and kids are also very in tune. I think like the average, say, 10-year-old is much more in tune with the goings on of these big console updates and stuff than they were back in even 2011, which I think is when the Wii U came out. So, I think they stand a better chance of having like the kids explain to the parents, no, it's a new thing. It's not the old thing. It's not just a reworking. Whereas with the original Wii to the Wii U, there was just a lot of confusion in general. So I think that's a whole thing.
Well, if these details are true, it has a larger screen than the Steam Deck, which has a 7.5-inch screen, and even the
Yeah, but it's like 8 inches, so it's like it's bigger, but a half inch. Don't get me wrong, a half inch can be helpful. A half inch can go a long way, but I don't know if that's enough to like, okay, therefore I'm gonna choose the Switch over the Steam Deck. Like I don't really buy that.
Sort of the biggest competitor to the Steam Deck, the Asus ROG Ally, has a 7-inch screen. So it has a whole extra inch there on that. Ryan, what do you make of these alleged Switch 2 details?
Well, I want to start with the backwards compatibility piece because that to me that's I don't want to say assumed because you can never assume with Nintendo, but that's the biggest relief I think before we get to getting excited about anything else. Because obviously Nintendo, more than any other company in gaming history, has been guilty of, and they get away with it. We keep buying them. They sell us the same games every single generation over and over and over again in some way, shape, or form. And we've, up until recently, been pretty happy to do that. But the game has changed now, and thankfully, I think Microsoft deserves a lot of credit for really pushing their compatibility efforts that have kind of caught on industry wide, and it's just not acceptable for Nintendo to not have to have backwards compatibility on whatever this new Switch is going to ultimately be called. I am on team Super Nintendo Switch for this one. That's the name I want to see. I know a lot of other people out there are with me on that, but so that's number one, is backwards compatibility. If that's a done deal, it's not something I'm like shouting from the rooftops about. It's just more of a relief than anything else, because that means my entire awesome Switch catalog can follow me to the new console. After that, you guys both kind of hit on it. It's a larger screen is great. That's a noticeable upgrade that I'll use. It'll be noticeable every single time you take it out of the dock. But then when it is in the dock, if it can go 4K, even if that's an upscaled 4K, I'm totally good with that, because I'm hoping for, I guess I stopped myself from saying expecting, but I'm very much hoping for the next major 3D Mario game at launch for this thing, and I was going to play it docked anyway for most of the time, if not all the time. And so if it's going to give me a 4K output on that, I'm going to be super thrilled. And so, yeah, the horsepower, as you said, Dave.
But we gotta, again, just to be clear, it's upscaled 4K. It's not like actual 4K. It's probably a 1080p signal upscaled, which even on a big screen, there's a lot of it's just not the same. It's not the same. I do agree, like a Super Nintendo Switch in SNS could be a thing. I could see that being a thing. I could see people talking about that. I could see that being a thing. I just also, though, the whole thing right now is that the backwards compatibility is sort of assumed, or it's not like he said, it's not assumed. It's rumored at this point. It's not confirmed. And so if it ends up being the case that the whole library is compatible with the new Switch, that would be great. That'd be awesome. But I'll believe it when I see it. It's Nintendo. It would be a big thing for Nintendo to do that, because you better believe if they can sell you back the remaster of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and they're each $70 and they just are the same game, but they run at 60 frames, a lot of people will still buy it. Just being real, like a lot of people will still buy it at $70. And I don't think that's lost on them. So I really hope they do backwards compatibility, because it's way better for the consumer. But it's Nintendo. Come on. Come on. When have they ever been super generous to their customers? This would be a very rare occurrence. And of course, it's rumored. It's up in the air. It might happen. It might not. But I'll believe it when I see it. Because right now, I'm not sure I believe it. It's just too up in the air for me personally.
Damon, it's not going to blow the doors off of a PS5 or a Series X, but if it's Series S like in horsepower, and there was in fact another rumor today as we sat down to record that it's maybe around a 4 teraflop output in docked mode, and that they maybe throttle it down a little bit in handheld in order to help extend the battery life. So we'll see if that proves to be true or not. But yeah, the backwards compatibility is just, that is number one. And with that, if we can check that off, and I know these are just rumors, nothing's official yet, but the backwards compatibility piece is enormous. And then from there, I agree with Max. I mean, the Switch is such a home run. It's such a great device, and it really kind of it changed gaming. I mean, look, without the Switch, there's no Steam Deck, there's no Xbox handheld that looks like it's coming up. So there's no need for Nintendo to go do something completely crazy different here. Just double down on what's working, and that seems to be what they're doing, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it is just a Switch Advance or whatever they might call it, that I still do think could be profitable and could work. It's just the rumors are suggesting that it's not even going to have an OLED screen at launch. It's going to be an LCD to drive costs down. That's going to, I mean, it will be a step down. If it's an LCD, but they started as like the current model that you can get at full price is the OLED. It's like that will just feel bad, especially because the OLED screen is so much better than the LCD. I mean, come on, it's so much better. It's not even close.
I mean, what's interesting is the Switch itself was doubling down on it. I mean, it was a gamble to make a handheld and a console in one.
Definitely.
You know, for the entire, you know, existence of Nintendo gaming devices, like there was the Game Boy and then there was the console, and like to suddenly put all of the eggs in one basket, you know, that's you can't screw that up, you know, and I'm very glad they didn't.
Yeah, the backwards compatibility thing, I totally agree with Ryan. There have been 140 million Nintendo Switches sold. It's only been outsold by the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo DS, which are about 155 million. We never thought anyone would even get close to those numbers, and now the Switch is like knocking on the door of those incredible successes. So it would just be a lot of unhappy people if they couldn't play their current Switch games on the Switch 2.
Yeah, but again, Nintendo don't give two Fs. Like, come on, nobody cares. PlayStation might care, Xbox might care, Nintendo don't care. Nintendo's just gonna do their thing, and they're gonna sell you the $70 remaster of Breath of the Wild, and you're gonna buy it, and you're gonna like it, and you're not gonna complain. You know, is Left Guy yawning again? Oh, is he? In case you missed it, we did a reaction to one of Max Scoville's videos, and in it, like, he was on the panel and they're talking about stuff, and he kept like yawning, but just like just enough that you could tell. Is he doing it now?
It would just be a lot of unhappy people if they couldn't play their current Switch games on the Switch 2.
Now, Damon,
he was prepping to talk. He was prepping to ask. Okay, no.
There's one part of this leak that we didn't touch on that I think is worth mentioning, is that the people who allegedly got to see this thing didn't actually see it. They just got to touch it.
Whoa. Oh.
Like in like a mystery box, right?
Yeah. Did you hear? That's what I heard floating around about this, which is a completely baffling thing, but I wouldn't really put it past Nintendo. Like, it's sort of, you know, you've got somebody holding a poison needle to the tester's neck and, you know, making them do the Bene Gesserit Gom Jabbar test or whatever.
Lower. Go all the way.
I wouldn't put anything past Nintendo.
Wait, so they said that they didn't even see it. They were like, would that be like an ergonomics test? Is that what they were doing? Where it's like, we want to see how it feels in your hand. So they like blindfold you, or it's in a box and you reach in and you grab it and you just see how it feels without looking at it. Maybe that's what it was? That's still weird, dude. I've never heard of that being a thing. I've never heard of that being, that's really weird.
Do we like the idea of electromagnetic Joy-Cons?
I think so. Yeah. I think it seems like a cool way to attach them and detach them. I mean, I don't know if it'll actually improve the experience at all, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it seems like that's the extent of the gimmick stuff happening here. There's the sort of rumor that they have additional buttons, which is curious. I'm wondering what those are going to be for. But as for the sort of electromagnetic suction, it seems like an unnecessarily complicated way of attaching controllers to the Switch, which sliding them on was just fine as far as I'm concerned. What I'd really love to see is, I'd love to see if them figure out the drift. Like if these new electromagnetic controllers don't suddenly start doing their own thing after 6 months, that would be great.
I mean, this has been rumored by a handful of people that they're going to be doing this electromagnetic suction attachment, whatever thing, instead of using rails. Because the current, I don't have mine down here, but the current Switch goes down metal rails and then clips into those with a physical latch or mechanism. And they're saying that this new one is going to attach with just like really strong magnets basically that they can kind of turn on or off, which is cool. But like they said, how does that make the user experience better? I don't know how that would make it better. And I also like how sturdy the Joy-Cons are when they're docked, like in the actual console, you know? Like, I don't know how, like if this makes it better. I like suction too, don't get me wrong, Dustin, but like I don't know how this makes it better. He took my thing.